Welcome back. You're still watching This Week, and I'm Somna Sambo. Next is the political conflict in Rivers State, where Governor Sim Fubara denied receiving any letter from the Martin Amewele-led State House of Assembly, which gave him 48 hours ultimatum to present the 2025 budget before the House. That ultimatum has since expired. It expired on Wednesday, March 5, with the state government in a letter through the office of the secretary to the state government, SSG, saying it was yet to receive the letter as at the close of work on Tuesday, 4th March. And this comes as political tension in Rivers State has heightened following the Supreme Court ruling, which recognized the legitimacy of the 27 lawmakers who had defected from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress. And the lawmakers who are loyal to the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike were reinstated, shifting the balance of power in the state's legislative arm, amid fears that the ultimate is to set the tone for the impeachment of the state governor, something that former warlord and prominent Niger Delta activist Asari Dokubo warns it could destabilize the state and lead to political unrest. All right, joining us from our Lagos studio to shed more light on the political torrents in Rivers State is a former commissioner for information in the state, Dr. Austin Tam George. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us. Let's talk about these letters that have been sent by the State House of Assembly. The State Electoral Commission also got one with the head of the Electoral Commission being summoned to the House to come and talk about the elections and the timetable and the botched election for local government that was held last year, which the Supreme Court also annulled. Talk to us about these developments and, of course, what Governor Sim Fubara will be thinking of doing.
Well, Sambo, good to see you, and thanks for having me on. As you said in your introduction, there has been a great deal of anxiety in Rivers State following the judgment of the Supreme Court. The Martins Amewele group have been, as you said, issuing all kinds of ultimatum, to the governor, but none has materialized yet because there is a faulty foundation here, Sambo. The most important thing now, I think, is for the Assembly, to learn how to work with the executive arm of government. I propose that now that they seem to be back, in business, there should be a way to work harmoniously with the executive arm, and I don't think that given ultimatum 24 hour or 48 hours of ultimatum is the way to go. What I think is going to happen in the weeks and months ahead is that the members of the Assembly will have to recognize that their loyalty should be to the Rivers people who elected them, rather than a political godfather who has his own business in Abuja. As soon as they were elected, their loyalty should remain with the Rivers people. They should see how they can give legislative support to the actions of the executive arm so that they can work together to serve the Rivers people. What Governor Fubara is doing is to make sure that political parties, once they elect people into office, should remember that their loyalty should ideally be to the people. And frankly, over the past 8 years, we have seen a situation where Rivers State had to deal with the very unfortunate specter of state capture by the Nyesom Wike administration. I served in that administration as Commissioner for Information. But now that Governor Fubara is on board, what he has said is that, look, resources meant for Rivers State must be used for the benefit of all Rivers people. So this is actually a very serious, battle as to the actual location of sovereignty in Rivers State. Should it lie with Nyesom Wike and his cohorts who are more interested in appropriating public resources for themselves and in pursuit of their political agenda, or should sovereignty lie with the Rivers people who will then use resources for the development of the state and for the benefit of all? So this is what the battle is for, and I believe that in the coming weeks and months, the battle is going to crystallize in a way that Nigerians will see that the sovereignty of the people will have to prevail.
All right. Well, the Wike group have always insisted that the governor should show any evidence where they're actually asking for financial resources, like you had said, and they seem not to have had any. But talk to us about the talks here and there about governance suffering under Governor Sim Fubara's government due to this political crisis here and on. At some point, it looked like things had simmered down and the governor was focusing on the developmental targets that he had set during his campaigns, but all of a sudden, of course, Rivers is in the news. I mean, could this be affecting governance so much as we have heard?
Well, I haven't seen any lull in the governance of the state. As you know, Governor Fubara is doing quite a lot in terms of pursuing his developmental agenda. He has employed over 2,000 doctors over the past 18 months in office. In contrast, no doctors were employed. Not a single doctor was employed for 8 years during the years on Wike administration. I served in the administration, so I know what I'm talking about. This year alone, in the 2025 budget, the governor has set forth 63 billion naira, for the education sector, and they are going to, be employing. The government has made a commitment to employ 3,000 teachers in this year alone. The governor actually inherited a very serious problem in the education sector. In fact, in some schools, with over 200 students, you had only 2 teachers in the past 8 years. The governor inherited a mess, across the sectors. But this year alone, from what I've seen so far in the budget, they are going to be recruiting 3,000 teachers. As you probably know, Sambo, the governor is already implementing a very vast infrastructural development across the state, the most notable being the Trans-Calabari Road, which is taking over 250 billion naira, to open that Trans-Calabari corridor in order to move, to move development away from the central location of Port Harcourt. All of these projects are ongoing as I speak with you. All the zonal hospitals in Rivers State, which were abandoned under the Nyesom Wike administration, are now being revived. I know this for certain because as Commissioner for Information in the Wike administration, it was my duty to announce that the zonal hospitals in Rivers State are going to be revived and put to use. But eventually, unfortunately, Sambo, those hospitals were completely abandoned. And now Governor Fubara is bringing them on board. We in the Nyesom Wike administration inherited over 100 primary healthcare centers in Rivers State. As a matter of policy, unfortunately, because of his political disagreement with the Amechi administration, all the primary healthcare centers were abandoned. Yeah, but now I have seen a comprehensive approach that is adopted by the Fubara administration. Now over 135 primary healthcare centers are now coming on board. For the first time, Sambo, we have comprehensive healthcare insurance led by the Fubara administration. So if your question is about whether governance is suffering because of these shenanigans by the FCT minister, from what I have seen, on the ground, governance has actually been on steroid in Rivers State. It's going quite well. All right,
and some would want to question your credentials. I mean, here you are actually castigating your former boss, Nyesom Wike, who gave you an appointment into the State Executive Council. And people want to ask, what exactly went wrong between you and your former boss that you are now backing his protege who is at war with his godfather?
That's a good question, Sambo, and I'm happy that you asked it. I served in the Nyesom Wike administration. I was his first commissioner for information, as you probably know. But just close after nearly 2 years or so, I had fundamental objections, concerning how the state was being managed. I tried to make suggestions internally, privately, to my boss, the governor. And when I saw that the state was taking a completely wrong turn, you know, you probably know that I resigned from the administration. So I didn't go to government simply because I wanted, you know, the glamour and the hedonism that goes with public office. I went into public office because I wanted to add value. I realized when I was in government that we had, you know, some of the worst development indices, and you know, assessing the administration of any government, it can be a very sentimental business. So let me tell you exactly why I left. I left on the basis of our failure on four development metrics. Number one is education. We had the highest number of out-of-school children in the South because the governor simply, decided to defund education. The money meant for education was simply diverted to play PDP politics and all that. And 20,000 children out of school in Rivers State for the first time since 1963. We also didn't have investment in agriculture. We had a very vibrant agricultural sector that we inherited from the Amechi administration. The governor, unfortunately, Governor Nyesom Wike then, unfortunately, because of his political differences with Amechi, decided also to defund the agricultural sector, abandoning the Songhai farms and the fisheries that we had across the state. So these were very fundamental matters that I disagreed with. We also had problems with social investment. Social investment means investing in people's capacity to improve themselves, lifting communities out of poverty. The governor, Nyesom Wike, could not even implement the 30,000 naira minimum wage across the state. When the NLC requested for 30,000 naira minimum wage, he closed down their offices and, and started hunting them like dogs. So another very fundamental point that I rejected, Samuel, because you asked, was because I just felt that if you are in public office, you should be able to deliver service to the people. And when I saw that there was a very strong failure, in this respect, I decided that I was going to leave the government.
Well, the Wike administration would disagree with you on that because they said they actually invested so much on infrastructural development and so on. But as we try to round off this conversation, talk to me about the two factors. Number one is the threat on Governor Sim Fubara if he doesn't present a fresh budget. And then, of course, secondly, the threat by former Niger Delta militants from Asari Dokubo and all of that, saying that, look, if Governor Sim Fubara is by any way impeached, that oil production will be cut, and of course, Rivers State would actually be in turmoil. I mean, in all of this, a lot of people are beginning to wonder if all of you in Rivers State would not hold Nigeria to ransom.
Well, Sambo, in Rivers State, there is a sense, there is a broad consensus that the judgment of the Supreme Court represents a judicial aggression against the people of Rivers State because, the allocation that has now been stopped by virtue of the judgment of the Supreme Court doesn't belong to Nyesom Wike or Governor Fubara. That is a statutory allocation that belongs to the Rivers people. So today, if you go to Rivers State, as a matter of fact, I just arrived from Port Harcourt just 2 days ago, there was a strong sense of anger across the street and across all communities in Rivers State. I believe personally that judgment was wrong, and it means that salaries for thousands of teachers will not be paid. Over 200,000 children are going to be out of school if salaries are not paid. Basic municipal services will not be delivered. What for? Why is that? So I know that while we don't endorse violence, the judgment of the Supreme Court was ill-considered. It represents a judicial aggression against the Rivers people. And I believe that at some point, the people have got to take their destinies in their hands. Do we advocate for violence? Far from it. But I believe that it was a very wrong judgment that, has been passed by the Supreme Court. And the only way that this can be remedied is to make sure that, you know, allocations are released to Rivers State. Over 10 million people live in Rivers State, and you can't hold the community, the state, you know, to ransom simply because of the shenanigans of the FCT minister. Now, concerning the so-called threats that you said were made by Mr. Asare Dokubo, I haven't followed Asare Dokubo, you know, I don't know what threats he's making, but I can tell you that there is a great deal of collective anger in Rivers State concerning what appears to be, you know, judicial aggression against nearly 10 million people who are resident in the state.
All right. Very quickly, just before I let you go, any political implications for the governing All Progressives Congress on what's going on in Rivers State in 2027 when the nation goes into another general election, specifically on President Tinubu? And then, of course, where's the place of Rivers State elders? I mean, shouldn't the elders be intervening if funds meant for the state are actually withheld by the federal government?
You know, I'm not a politician, as you know, Sambo, so I'm careful not to make political predictions. But I think that ultimately, all political office holders, including Mr. President, will be judged based on their performance, their ability to deliver their, you know, on the promises that they made, not to Rivers people as such, but to Nigerians, you know, in general. So will the president be likely re-elected? It depends on his performance. I think that at the end of the day, in the final analysis, each and every public office holder will have to be judged on the strength of their performance to Nigerians. As we know, Nigerians are suffering. There's a great deal of hunger in the land. A lot of people are wondering whether, you know, the policies of government at all levels are working. You know, so my own suggestion will be for office holders broadly, you know, to deliver service to the people and try to ameliorate the material conditions of Rivers people. The other of people generally across the country. The other point you raised about whether, you know, Rivers State is going to move forward from the crisis. I strongly believe, if you know the history of Rivers State, Sambo, you will recognize that the people have always, you know, taken their destinies in their hand, right from 1957, when we insisted on the Williams Commission, up to this moment. Rivers people at critical moments in their development have always taken their destinies in their hands, and I believe that the sovereign will of the Rivers people will prevail over the prebendal politics of some of those who hold public office today.
All right, we must thank you so much, Dr. Austin Tam George is the former Commissioner for Information in Rivers State. We must thank you so much for your immense wealth of knowledge and understanding of Rivers politics, and we thank you for being with us right here. And that's the much we can take on this edition of This Week. Thanks to our production team here in Abuja, Lagos, and London. Do join us same time next week for another exciting edition. I'm Som Sando.